We're live. Let's go. 1-0 to start this season. Sports gambling with Moneyline Monaco live on a couple of platforms at the moment. Please subscribe, rate, review. Goes a long way. Humble 25 subscribers to kick off this season. Really appreciate all the support. And again, over 55% against the spread. Well over it. Today, we break down single game, first ever in Brazil. Eagles at the moment. Here's the updated line. -2.5. -108 is the juice. -126 on the money line. Packers +2.5, +108. Over under 49.5, pending where you shop. Just a quick button on last night's game. Comes down to a Seinfeld pinky toe likely losing his mind on his way out of Arrowhead. We swallowed the Chiefs -3. And to me, narrative-wise, last night's game, as we segue into this evening's game, is pretty fascinating. You look at what people are saying today about this one. Let's just be honest. Packers fans travel very well. Eagles fans travel very well. Different fan bases, but overall, common denominator, we're talking 2 top 5 fan bases in the sport of football, flat out, bar none. But this game, and everyone's talking points in the betting community is kind of similar. It's a lot of LaFleur, and I got it here for you. We'll talk on one side before I give you where I'm at on this game. LaFleur opening game. LaFleur first road underdog outing of the season. And I understand. You sit here, whether you're a Packers fan, a gambler, what have you, and you look at Jordan Love, who wants big boy money, and you say to yourself, this dude could be another home run for the Green Bay Packers. Now, for me, I want to see it again. Because to me, I saw 2 Jordan Loves last year. I saw Jordan Love in the first 10 weeks of the season. I have the numbers here. And then I saw Jordan Love down the stretch. I saw Jordan Love from weeks 3 through 10 have a turnover in 6 of 7 games. I saw Jordan Love have a 2-interception game, a 3-interception game. How about as many touchdowns as interceptions in 3 of those games? And oh, by the way, Packers catching 5 of 6 L's in those games. As much as we want to praise Jordan Love down the stretch, we saw a little bit of growing pains in the middle of the season. To me, games on the road, you want to call it neutral, you want to call it an Eagles home game. Technically, it is. Are they getting snubbed? Absolutely. Lincoln Financial, have you been there? I have, in a Padres uniform for a Phillies game across the street. We're talking Wells Fargo. We're talking Citizens Bank and Lincoln Financial with a centered beer station, top shelf bar, one of the best sports communities. As much as I do talk ish on Philly, you do it because you ain't them and you love them. Fan base is top tier. They're traveling. They're there. But I look at them down the stretch last year as we kind of bounce around, just narrative before we get into the X's and O's. You dropped 6 to 7 games to end the season, including an at the pirate ship Tampa playoff L. What was the main reason outside of really the defense just gave up? The defense just looked banged up with injuries and lost its sea. And it reflected in the win-loss column. Let's just call it what it is. But then you look at what Philly did this offseason. Now, you lose a Hall of Fame center to podcasting. That stinks. But I'll tell you what they did do that I really like. Now, everyone forgets Steichen, Gannon. You go to the Super Bowl, you catch an L, you lose both coordinators. I still have questions about Nick Sirianni myself. I think Nick Sirianni could be more of a talker as a head coach, valuable in the locker room than he could be X's and O's. Because you saw what that Philly team was with turnover at both coordinators, and they looked horrendous in certain scenarios. You look at, I'm going to keep coming back to turnovers in this game in Brazil tonight. You look at what Jalen Hurts did last year, 15 interceptions. Guy had 15 interceptions in 2 seasons before he got paid. 15 interceptions in 2 seasons and 15 interceptions last season. Look, if we're talking about Jordan Love down the stretch, Jalen Hurts down the stretch of last year, you lean Jordan Love. But you go out and you get Kellen Moore. We forget, and I'm a recovering San Diego Chargers fan, all right? This was an abomination of a botch, misusing Kellen Moore in L.A., San Diego Chargers land. Thank you, Spanos. Entirely. That team was a disaster. I got a lot of strong takes on the Chargers. It always comes down to situational coaching with them. And Kellen Moore did not have the luxury, because Brandon Staley was not a Gerald Butler leader of 300 men, to be able to work his magic. Let's go back to what he was as 5 years of an offensive coordinator in Dallas. This man had a top 10 offense in points 3 times. They were number 1 in yards twice. 2019, 2020, 21. Last year, they didn't have any luxury of continuity on offense. You had A.J. Brown in the middle of a playoff run changing his Twitter or Instagram handle. Maybe he's an Eagle, maybe he isn't. You had no running game. You had injuries defensively that were key. I mean, that defensive secondary was decimated. You go out, you spend your first 3 round draft picks. Shout out Mitchell, shout out Coop from Iowa, 2 of them being DBs, 1 of them being an edge rusher. You go get CJ Gardner-Johnson back, and then you go out and you get Vic Fangio. Now, as mediocre as Vic Fangio looked in Miami, this is a guy on his resume that just speaks for himself. Dude, before any Gen Zers were watching football with commercials, was dominating defensively with the 2000s, mid-2000s Ravens clubs. Go look up what he did. He was Jim Harbaugh's hand-picked defensive specialist in San Francisco. The dude's resume is there. He has a lot to work with on this defense this evening. And to me, I'm looking at Jalen Carter to disrupt the front. Now, okay, Josh Jacobs, turnover at running back. You got turnover with Saquon Barkley as well. Saquon Barkley, give the guy credit, averaged 70 yards a game with one of the worst New York Little Giants offensive lines that they just simply can't write I've ever seen. They cannot get it right. I'm huge on the trenches. It's not glamorous. It's not talked about enough in betting. You win games, you lose games off the trenches. It's what I spoke on last night when I handicapped, and yes, I have text to prove it, a 27-20 Chiefs over the Ravens game. I literally predicted the score. I looked at the over-under of 47.5, saw a 3-point spread, said, you know what? 27-20 Chiefs. Hand to God, predicted it. Point being, 3 new pieces on the offensive line for the Ravens, and you saw what? Flag after flag after flag. You saw Chris Jones mucking it up. Well, not saying the same turnover with Green Bay that there was in Baltimore. Couple of new pieces, but in addition, Josh Jacobs, who is this man? All right? Who is Josh Jacobs? Because I went back and checked. Two 100-yard outings all season in Vegas. You have to understand the guy was a fantasy football savant. He led the league in multiple statistical categories 2 years ago. Last year, he fell off a cliff. 2 100-yard rushing games. So again, if you're starting to hear me build my argument here, knowing that I'm liking Philly tonight, I'll implore you to swallow the 2 or take minus 126 on the money line. It's expensive. It's not minus 140. Again, you want to shop around, do your due diligence. This podcast is not sponsored. Like my television show, make sure to check it out. The Better Half Hour, brought to you by BetMGM on MSG Networks. I digress. Here you go with Kellen Moore and Vic Fangio, 2 adults, two specialists with assets. Now, again, couple of pieces banged up for Philly on the defensive side. But I look at Jalen Hurts working with Kellen Moore. PFF still has Philly as a top 5 offensive line. Still. And I look at what could be at stake tonight. And I think this game comes down to managing the clock, managing emotions on the road. Brazil's going to be rocking. This is a soccer. This is a diehard football country, FUTBOL. Pride one of one. There's going to be football fans and football fans in this crowd. I think it's actually going to give not much of an edge to either club. But what I do like is the adults in the room. Jordan Love on the road. Sure, he's comfortable. How about internationally comfortable? You have to think, and I know this is what a lot of people thought with Ravens Chiefs, football psychology, beer pong rebuttal game. You're going to come back. You're going to dance. You're going to show up for everything that the Chiefs got that you didn't with the Ravens. Well, how about the Packers down the stretch last year? Sensational down the stretch. They embarrassed the Cowboys in the playoffs, and that was a shootout in Texas, and then almost stole one. LaFleur made Shanahan fits like I've never seen before. Almost stole one. But Philadelphia goes 1-6 down the stretch. That is not who Philly is. This is a team with dog. This is a team with pride. This is a team that went out and, quite frankly, filled every hole they needed to. What are we not liking on Philly's offense? We haven't seen this new offense rolled out. I have to say this. The Green Bay Packers defense is serviceable. They got some players. I'm not saying they don't have a couple of dudes, but if you're sitting here thinking, outside of a couple of key pieces, Jair Alexander's phenomenal. They went out and they got McKinney. I like the compliment. Giants shouldn't have let him go. They let him go. I like Rashawn Gary, Kenny Clark, Preston Smith, Quay Walker. But we're still talking about a team that was bottom 5 in rush defense last year. Matter of fact, I got the numbers here. And I don't know how you feel good about a top 7 rushing team in Philly, top 5 rushing team the previous 2 seasons, coming in against a Packers team that gave up well over 325 yards overall game to game last year, but gave up 128 on the ground. Week to week. You're talking about only the Cardinals, trash. Seahawks, I could run 2.4 yards a carry against defensively last year. That's why they went out and got McDonald and swooped him from the Ravens. The Broncos gave up 70 points in a football game. They gave up more points per minute. All right? And the Giants. Those are the only teams better at worse at stopping the run than the Packers, okay? None of those teams were playoff teams. None of those teams, except for one, was even sniffing 500 football last year. So if the Eagles just stay within their means in this game, run the football, establish the run, start to build up the time of possession, pepper in plays, and Kellen Moore will be able to do this. And as much as Kellen Moore likes to pass the ball, there were times where he was forced to run the ball and it worked. Situational awareness in this game is going to be huge. It's never been played in Brazil. All we have in front of us is 2 teams. One team didn't really do much because the Packers are notorious for not doing much with free agent signings. Now they finally turned the page a little bit last few years after Aaron Rodgers barked for a decade plus. But a lot of things are going to be corrected in real time for Philly in this game. Now, if Jalen Hurts throws the ball to Yellow and not Kelly Green tonight, we're screwed. We lose the game. If Jordan Love takes better care of the football than Jalen Hurts, I'd like to think the Packers will win. But you have to look at takeaways, giveaways from last year. The Packers are not really an opportunistic defense. They had 10 more in the turnover category than the Eagles last year, but you go to takeaways, not giveaways, and they're tied. So 10 more from Love to Hurts. But when it comes to defense and opportunistic defenses, you got to sit there and go, Philly got better on defense. All right, McKinney made these boys a little bit better in the secondary. But I just think tonight, hungry dogs run faster. I'm looking at the splits on Action Network. I'm seeing a lot of tickets. That's bet percentage. You have tickets, you have money. Tickets at the moment are trending towards the Packers. Money is trending towards the Eagles. Sometimes you can cover the eyes, plug your schnoz, and just fade the public. This is one of those games you kind of have to do your own thinking. And my thinking, to me, is rock solid, down the middle, on point. Establish the run, be the more physical team, and let's see which Jordan Love shows up. Jordan Love hasn't been to a Super Bowl like Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts lost by a field goal to Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. How would we, just a cup of coffee ago, how would we be looking at the painting if we knew Jalen Hurts has gone all the way up the mountain and won it? He lost by a field goal. Is perception reality for this Philly team? I don't think so. I don't want to continue to repeat myself, but I will end on this. Jalen Hurts had 15 interceptions last year. He had 15 interceptions in 2 seasons when he came out the gate and cooked and flat out stole that job like he did in numerous stops in college. This is a soft, bend but not break Packers D that's susceptible to giving up a lot of chunkage of yards in certain spots. Go look at their games to games. Love played above the rim. It's just buying high on the Packers and selling low on the Eagles. Look at it the opposite. It's a market. You're getting, to me, a better price than you otherwise would if this was at Lincoln Financial. If this game was at Lincoln Financial, this is not a 2-point line, 2.5-point line. It's 3. It might even be 3.5. Well, I'm seeing spiked bald dudes with spray painted hair at the top of Brazilian statues all over the country. They're traveling to wherever they got because they're pissed off this year. They got to go to Brazil for game 1. Not to mention, rest advantage coming back favors the Eagles. Something to think about, something to flirt with. We're on our way out here. Moneyline Monaco. Subscribe, rate, review. We're at Moneyline Monaco on YouTube. Sports gambling with Moneyline Monaco across all platforms. We appreciate you. And as always, don't forget to hug your mothers. Ta-ta real smooth. Philly, fly to the bank, baby. Swallow the points.